Revealed how 5 kind bikers transformed a hungry kid's disaster into an amazing act of kindness. Oliver leaned against the brick wall outside the Sally's diner, squinting as the late afternoon sun streamed through the leaves, creating dappled shadows on the sidewalk. The familiar scent of frying bacon hung in the air, making his stomach growl louder than ever. He had been waiting nearly an hour for his mother, who had promised to pick him up after her shift ended. Doubt crept in like weeds through cracks in the pavement. Would she even show? He knew things were tough since Dad lost his job, and they were juggling bills like circus performers. Suddenly, laughter shattered his concentration. A group of boys from school approached, their faces twisted with mockery, eyes glinting with cruel excitement. "Look, it's the kid who can't buy lunch," one of them jeered, tossing a half-eaten burger in Oliver's direction. It landed with a wet splat at his feet. His heart raced, blood thundering in his ears like a freight train. Humiliation clawed at his gut, tightening its grip as they advanced, egging each other on. "What's the matter, Ollie? Too poor to afford a meal?" They continued to rain insults, each word a dagger that cut deeper than any physical blow. The laughter echoed hollowly, swirling around him as he dropped to the ground, desperately wishing to disappear. The safety of the library, with its dust-coated books and endless worlds of knowledge, felt miles away. Instead, he was trapped in this moment of despair, feeling more invisible than he ever had before. Before Oliver could fully sink into his regret and pain, a rumble of engines pierced the air, pulling him from the depths of his shame. The roar of motorcycles thundered through the quiet town, an unexpected symphony that drew all eyes. 5 bikers, clad in black leather, stormed down the street, catching the attention of onlookers and transforming the scene. They skidded to a stop, faces etched with curiosity mixed with hardened resolve as they assessed the situation. But a man with a scruffy beard stepped forward, addressing the bullies with a voice steady as steel. Instead of dissolving the boys in a typical punishment, the bikers surrounded Oliver, shielding him from the taunts. "Hey kid, let's get you something to eat. You know you're better than this, right?" Their kindness unfolded like a warm blanket around his trembling shoulders, igniting a flicker of something he thought he'd lost hope. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they offered burgers and shared stories of their own struggles, Oliver's heart swelled with a burgeoning sense of belonging. Inspired, he resolved to forge a gathering at the library at kickoff to foster kindness. But as he began inviting townsfolk, he noticed their disdain for the bikers. The looming hesitation of those he once idolized chilled him. Would anyone heed the lessons of compassion from those who didn't fit the mold? A knot of uncertainty twisted in his stomach. Sinking doubts gripped his spirit tighter, making him question everything he dared to dream. Standing at the precipice of his aspirations, Oliver wrestled with the shadows of doubt. Would his voice carry weight? Would it echo through a town divided by looks and laughter? As the day of reckoning approached, he could feel the walls closing in, and the pressure just might be too much to bear. Would he choose to be heard, or let fear silence him forever? Oliver stared intently at the library's entrance, the heavy wooden door serving as a barrier between his dreams and the reality he feared. The flickering fluorescent lights inside felt distant, and a layer of dust settled on the community bulletin board, not quite as neglected as he felt, but hardly bustling with activity. He had made up his mind to take action, yet every step towards the door felt burdensome. Weighted by the judgment he imagined from the townspeople, he turned, contemplating the recent encounter. The bikers had shown him kindness in a world that seemed intent on making him small. Their laughter, their stories, and their willingness to share made him feel human again. Yet, the stares of disdain from his peers haunted him. Would he become a target for their scorn once again? With each ticking moment, the pestering questions surged. What if they rejected his idea outright? What if his dreams for the library turned into nothing but a farce, an experiment doomed to fail? Oliver clenched his fists, trying to ground himself. He had dreamed of creating a space where kindness had a platform, where stories ignited compassion, yet fear surged like a tide, threatening to pull him under. "Focus, Oliver," he muttered under his breath, summoning the memory of the bikers, their unwavering support now a lifeline against the tide of doubt. Their example transformed his humiliation into a kind of determination. He could not let fear dictate his actions. He took a deep breath and stepped inside the library, the familiar scent of old books embracing him like a warm hug. It wasn't just a building. It was a sanctuary, a trove of stories waiting to be told. Oliver moved towards the community room, the space bustling with whispers and laughter. A few regulars sat in their usual spots, while others shuffled in and out, engaged in discussions about the latest novel or the town's mundane happenings. As he approached the front desk, he caught the librarian, Miss Hawthorne, eyeing him with a mix of curiosity and concern. He steeled his resolve and began speaking, tentative at first. "Miss Hawthorne, I was thinking that maybe we could host something here. You know, a gathering?" Her eyebrows raised, and Oliver's heart quickened. What kind of gathering? Something that promotes kindness. A chance for everyone to share stories, just like the bikers did for me. He could see her pondering. "Are you sure about this, Oliver? It could bring together a diverse group, and not all town members appreciate diversity." Her caution struck him harder than he anticipated. "But isn't that what we need? To hear each other as stories? To build a bridge where compassion can flourish." A silence enveloped them, filled with the sounds of rustling pages and distant conversations. Oliver felt vulnerable, his words hanging in the air like a paper airplane, fragile yet daring to soar. Miss Hawthorne's face softened, revealing a glimmer of understanding. "All right, if you want to organize it, I'll support you. But only if you are prepared for mixed reactions." Oliver's spirit soared, although unease curled back like smoke. He wasn't merely organizing a gathering. He was stepping into the unknown, embracing an initiative that demanded strength he wasn't sure he possessed. As he walked away, exhilarated yet profoundly anxious, he contemplated who to approach next, who among his peers might resonate with his vision. With each passing hour, the clock's ticking intensified his perception of time. The voices of encouragement from the bikers reverberated in his mind, pushing him to consider the unthinkable. Perhaps he could host a special guest at his gathering. Could he bring the bikers back to share their stories as a testament to the power of kindness? The moment of truth loomed near. He would have to face the bullies once more, confront the very fear that had shackled him for too long. Did he have the courage to invite the bikers back and stand before the crowd to share his ideas? As he prepped his next steps in his mind, Oliver could already sense that this journey stretched far beyond mere storytelling. Decisions loomed over him like storm clouds ready to explode. Would he reach out for their help or shrink into silence once again? A nagging uncertainty settled in Oliver's mind as he left the library. Beyond the comforting walls, the pulse of the town felt menacing. He wanted to chase after his vision, yet the echoes of his past hung heavy like chains, each memory tethering him further to his fear. How often had he slipped through hallways, avoiding laughter and conversations, reduced to nothing more than a shadow in a vibrant space. As he wandered the outskirts of town, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows of buildings that almost reached out to him, a reminder of his isolation. It was easy to retreat into despair, but the image of the bikers, their raw sincerity sparking something inside him he thought had long died, ignited an ember of bravery. Could he really take this leap? He found himself at the small diner that the bikers frequented, the smell of fried food wafting through the open door, brightened by the laughter and the sound of clinking silverware. Oliver paused, feeling the pull of familiarity drift through the air. Instead of relief, a wave of vulnerability washed over him. They had welcomed him in before. Was that a sign to approach them again? Just do it, he whispered to himself. This decision required commitment, not hesitation. He stepped inside, scanning the room for their distinct leather jackets and friendly faces. It didn't take long to spot them in a booth, the vibrant conversation and genuine camaraderie radiating warmth. As he approached, they turned in unison, their laughter dying down, replaced by curious expressions. "Hey, Oliver," one of them exclaimed, patting the space beside him. "Come join in." Grateful for the invitation, he slid into the booth, the weight of isolation momentarily lifted. "Thanks for talking with me the other day," he began, searching for the right words. I've been thinking about how to bring people together through their stories, kind of like what you did for me. The bikers exchanged knowing glances, clearly intrigued. Sounds like you're cooking up something big, another one said, leaning in. I want to hold a gathering at the library, Oliver pressed on, words tumbling out at a breathless pace. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to come back and share your stories with everyone? Show them how kindness can connect us. Just as he finished, a wave of doubt crashed over him. What if they laughed? What if they brushed him off as just another kid dreaming too big? Yet, the bikers' expressions remained earnest. Absolutely, we'd love to. One biker said with an encouraging cheer. There's power in sharing stories. It's what we do. Relief washed over Oliver. He hadn't anticipated such a positive response. But somewhere inside, a knot tightened. The challenge now lay ahead. The whispers of ridicule and disdain from peers replayed in his mind. Would he be enough to challenge the doubts that arose? Could this gathering actually facilitate change? No sooner had these thoughts settled than another biker spoke up. But you'll need to prepare yourself for pushback. Some folks won't take kindly to outsiders sharing their truths. Oliver nodded, the reality slicing through his enthusiasm. I know. It terrifies me. But I can't let that stop me. I have to try. Then it's time to embrace the challenge, the biker said. Sometimes, you find your strength in the loudest chaos, he added with a wink. They outlined potential stories and logistical support. An unfamiliar pulse of confidence began to beat within Oliver. For the first time, he felt the thrill of possibility, igniting a transformation fueled not only by his fear, but now supported by his new allies. The night wore on, ideas flowing as freely as the coffee. This burgeoning plan held potent promise, but the looming tension of impending confrontation with his peers gnawed at him. What awaited on the other side of this leap? With newfound determination burning, Oliver knew his journey was only beginning. He had to brace himself for the storm ahead, where both judgment and courage would collide in a moment of reckoning. He finally whispered under his breath, "This is just the beginning." Little did he know how much his resilience would be tested as the reality of each decision crystallized in front of him. As he stepped outside, the weight of the impending gathering settled back in the pit of his stomach. Anxiety mixed with fierce anticipation. He was ready to face the consequences, no matter how uncomfortable they might be. What could possibly happen next? When he finally reached out to the very peers he feared, the moment of truth held tantalizing uncertainty, and Oliver could hardly wait to discover what awaited him on this path he had chosen. With dawn's first light filtering through the veil of night, Oliver's resolve both flickered and strengthened. In his mind swirled visions of the gathering, each potential outcome offering a different shade of fear and excitement. He lingered on the bikers' words, feeling their optimism push against his trepidation like the steady beat of a drum. This gathering was the first step into uncharted territory, and as he stood there, he couldn't shake the feeling that a transformation was underway. Every step toward the library felt heavier than the last, as though each footfall was a mental weight pressing down, forcing him to confront the echoes of his past. He recalled the teasing, the whispers, the moments when he wished to fade away, nights spent wondering if he'd ever break free from that shadowy corner of isolation. But today, the shadows were different. They were a challenge to confront, not a prison to endure. He arrived earlier than planned, the library's front doors still locked. Instead of waiting idly, Oliver paced the entrance, mentally mapping out his intentions. He envisioned the staged area, the chairs lined neatly, his peers seated with curiosity, and the bikers commanding the space with their stories. As thrilling as that vision was, it also left a pit of anxiety deep in his stomach. Would he be brave enough to share with them? When the bikers arrived, the sight of their worn leather jackets and confident strides infused Oliver with a strange blend of comfort and unease. Each biker greeted him with robust energy that seemed to strengthen his resolve. "It's going to be all right, kid," one biker said, noticing Oliver's fidgety hands. "Yeah, they love our stories," chimed another, slapping him on the back. The camaraderie was infectious yet overwhelming. As the door creaked open and they stepped inside, Oliver felt the weight of expectations settle over him like a cloak. Positioning chairs in a circle, they prepared themselves for the onslaught of potential judgment that would soon materialize. "You ready?" The biker who had first welcomed him asked, his eyes sharp and encouraging. Oliver nodded, though doubt still simmered beneath the surface. As they settled into their seats, a clamor of voices began to fill the room, each new face stoking his anxiety. The latecomers filtered in, and for a few moments, his heart raced with the cacophony of laughter and side conversations, a whirlwind that mirrored his inner chaos. When Oliver stood and cleared his throat, an unsettling hush descended. Here, his vulnerability was palpable, steamrolling over him like an unforeseen wave. "Thanks for coming, everyone," he managed, his voice wavering slightly. "I asked you to join me today because I believe we can connect through our stories, even if they're different from each other." At that moment, he felt every eye on him, a piercing reminder of his insecurities. But as he scanned the sea of faces, he found something unexpected. A mixture of curiosity and understanding stared back at him, urging him onward. As the bikers began to share their experiences, Oliver watched and listened closely, absorbing the tales of struggle, strength, and redemption. Each story seemed to chip away at his own fears, weaving a collective tapestry of resilience. The way they spoke, passionate, unfiltered, stirred something deep within him. But the anxiety lingered, keeping his voice trapped behind a wall of apprehension. The realization dawned. He had to be vulnerable in order to lead. As the last biker concluded, Oliver felt a soft warmth envelop him, edging him closer to breaking the walls that confined his own narrative. The decision unfurled before him, a singular path illuminated through self-doubt. Swallowing hard, he stepped forward, his heart pounding. "I have a story too," Oliver said, feeling the trembling urgency within. "And if you can share yours, then I can at least try to share mine." But the fear of judgment loomed larger, threatening to swaddle him once more. Would they listen? Would they understand? As he opened his mouth to speak, he felt a crack in the dam of his doubts, one that might very well lead to an emotional flood of self-discovery. Yet, despite the gravity of his decision, he didn't notice the door creaking open behind him, a shadow slipping quietly into the space. What awaited behind that entrance could shift everything he had hoped to achieve. As Oliver opened his mouth to speak, a chill traveled down his spine when the door creaked open behind him. The atmosphere shifted, an undercurrent of tension coursing through the room. He dared a glance over his shoulder, catching a fleeting glimpse of the newcomer, a tall figure dressed in dark attire, face obscured by a cap, casting a shadow over sharp features. The sudden presence threatened to unravel the fragile thread of courage he had begun to weave. His heart raced. The uncertain, clawing anxiety returned in full force. He could feel a bead of sweat trickling down the back of his neck. He swallowed hard, but the words he had braced himself to share felt lost in the ether between him and the strangers he sought to connect with. "Who is that?" a voice whispered from the crowd, breaking the silence with a note of doubt that echoed his own unspoken fears. Oliver's instincts urged him to retreat, to reclaim the safety of his former anonymity. He wanted nothing more than to dissolve into the scenery, but he didn't allow himself that consolation. Instead, he drew a breath, trying to find a safe harbor among the storm of uncertainty now raging within him. Deep down, however, a nagging thought grounded him. The very reason he was standing there, the desire to transform his fear into a conduit for connection, loomed larger than the newcomer's shadow. The biker who had first spoken to him placed a steady hand on his shoulder, a silent encouragement steeped in solidarity. "You've got this, man," he whispered. The sincerity in his voice resonated, forcing Oliver to wrestle with the opposing sentiments clawing at his mind. As he resumed his place in the circle, the stranger slipped further into the room, aligning himself along the wall, watching, unsettlingly still, like an omen tightening the ambience. Rearranging his focus back to the gathering, Oliver summoned the words in his heart and steadied his thoughts. He remembered the biker's stories, the triumph over adversity, the heartache transformed through community. Drawing that strength, he repeated softly, "I have a story too." He decided to share the tale of troubles and hardships, but also the hope that fluttered beneath the weight of his burdens. It was both liberating and terrifying, each word a personal exploration. He spoke of his childhood, the whispers that followed him, the isolation woven into the fabric of his existence. The shadows that had once consumed him were now threads in the tapestry he presented. The biker's presence remained a ghost in his periphery, pulling his attention, a figure too quiet for comfort, but Oliver refused to let it distract him. He continued, driven by an urgency to be seen and heard, transcending the moment and allowing vulnerability to guide his spirit of authenticity. As he spoke, he witnessed the empathy etched on the faces of those listening, tears glistening, nods of accompaniment affirming the shared human experience. With every line he delivered, the feeling of inadequacy began to dilute, replaced by a connection he had hoped for, a fellowship of shared stories coalescing like the roaring engines of the bikers outside. Yet, just as he began to feel the freedom of his truth, curiosity flickered in his mind about the newcomer, the stillness that suggested far more than indifference. Would he embrace this moment of vulnerability, or would he cast shadows over the light Oliver was striving to create? And with that question heavy in the atmosphere, a sudden movement drew the attention back to the shadow. The strangers stepped forward, revealing themselves in a way that was both painfully familiar and startling. The confrontation that lay ahead beckoned, demanding Oliver's attention in a fierce storm of emotions and revelations. What would this unveiling mean for his burgeoning confidence? What truths waited to emerge that could alter the course of his new path? The looming figure stepped into the light, and Oliver's breath caught in his throat as recognition washed over him. It was Marcus, his estranged older brother, the very embodiment of the life Oliver had fought to escape. A mix of fear and anger twisted in his stomach as the room filled with murmurs, a palpable tension suffocating the air. This was not how he envisioned reclaiming his narrative. Marcus? His voice barely escaped his lips, tinged with disbelief. Why had he come here? Did he know about the circle, about Oliver's attempts to break free from the past? The crowd shifted uncomfortably, the camaraderie that had enveloped Oliver dissipating like morning fog under a scorching sun. Marcus stood there, his silence as imposing as the leather jacket draped over his shoulders. Memories flooded Oliver's mind, bitter combinations of childhood struggles, arguments that had split their once close bond. The gaze of the crowd wavered between them, a mixture of intrigue and concern. The moment seemed suspended, stretching infinitely as the stakes shifted. What would he do now? Confront the personification of his fears head-on? Or cower behind the fabric of uncertainty he had just begun to dismantle? The urgency of the moment propelled him forward, awakening a force he had suppressed for far too long. Why are you here? Oliver demanded, eyes locked onto Marcus. There was a rising swell of determination within him, a need to assert control over the narrative that had defined him for so long. Slowly, Marcus spoke, his voice low and guarded. I came to find you, Oliver. They've changed. I need to talk. The weight of those words struck home. Could the brother who once contributed to his struggles now bring something different, a path toward reconciliation? Oliver felt a flicker of hope blend with hesitation. Would this be the moment he took to reforge a connection, or would it be a distraction, spiraling him back into the darkness of his past? The room hovered on the edge of chaos as Oliver fought to maintain his composure. He had spent so long pushing against the burdens of his upbringing, trying to carve out a new identity. Was this a chance for healing, or just another betrayal masquerading as redemption? Talk, Oliver challenged, his pulse quickening. You have to understand, Marcus, I'm trying to do something here. Every story I shared tonight was a piece of me I revealed to folks who I thought understood what I was going through. The biker from earlier surged forward, a protective presence. You don't have to say anything you're not ready for, man. His eyes flicked over to Marcus, assessing, gauging the newcomer's impact. But the unrelenting pressure of confrontation pressed upon Oliver. This wasn't just about him anymore. The collective weight of the stories shared echoed in the air. What if Marcus's presence somehow threatened this fragile web of connection he had woven with the bikers? But what if he could learn something about his brother, about himself that might reshape his understanding of strength? With a deep breath, Oliver decided to step into the fray. This moment could serve as a pivotal point for both of them to reconcile the past while navigating the profound revelations happening in his present. He nodded towards Marcus, resolved. Fine. Talk. But let us do it here now. I need to understand before I move forward. The murmurs rose again, but this time with a sense of electric anticipation. It felt as if something monumental hung in the balance, waiting for the right words to tip the scales. Marcus took a step closer, The tension shifted, a magnetic energy sparking in the air. Would this lead to a previously unimaginable understanding? Or would the revelations drag Oliver back into the darkness he had fought so hard to escape? As the two men faced each other, the crowd falling silent, the air thick with unresolved feelings, Oliver felt the moment break against him, the storm of emotions and possibilities crashing into a critical juncture of his newfound identity. What would he learn, and at what cost? Marcus's gaze locked onto Oliver's, unwavering yet distant, as though he carried the weight of their shared past on his shoulders. The electrifying silence that enveloped them was punctuated only by the distant hum of muffled conversations, adding urgency to the moment. Oliver could feel his heart pounding ferociously as he squared his shoulders, mentally preparing for what lay ahead. He was no longer the scared kid who had found solace in the shadows, longing to break free. He was a man who had fought to carve his own identity. "Things have changed, Marcus," he reiterated, the words churning in his throat as a mixture of defiance and need for clarity consumed him. "What does that even mean?" Marcus shifted his weight, a subtle tremor of uncertainty flickering across his rugged exterior. I'm not the same person I was. I've been trying to turn my life around." "I thought maybe you'd turn your life around," Oliver interrupted, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "That's rich coming from you. You abandoned me when things got tough. What makes this time different?" The tension in the air deepened, an almost tangible force, and Oliver's fists clenched at his sides. He could sense the bikers behind him inching closer, providing an unspoken support that steadied his resolve. This confrontation had taken on a life of its own now. It was about more than just the two brothers. It symbolized a reckoning with their shared history. "I know I messed up," Marcus said, his voice cracking under the weight of his admission. "I was young, stupid, selfish. But I've changed, Oliver. I want to fix what's broken between us." The sincerity in Marcus's eyes was disarming, yet Oliver couldn't dissolve the years of pain with mere words. "And what exactly do you want from me? Forgiveness? Understanding? I'm still battling my own demons." As he spoke, Oliver was struck by a surge of realization about his own journey. It had been a path of self-discovery, where he'd unearthed his strength through vulnerability. The very act of sharing his story had empowered him, and now, standing at this crossroads, he felt a deep reluctance to relinquish the precarious ground he had just gained. "Maybe we can start by being honest, Marcus," he said, his voice steadier now. "What did you want when you walked in here tonight? Do you really believe a heart-to-heart will fix things?" The surrounding bikers oscillated between curiosity and support. Oliver's challenge echoed within him, illuminating the fragments of strength he had amassed. His shield wasn't merely armor, but a beacon to illuminate his path forward. "I just wanted to talk to you. To let you know that I'm here, and I want to rebuild our relationship," Marcus replied, his eyes pleading, vulnerable in an unfamiliar way. Wordless contemplation cloaked Oliver as he wrestled with the potential of connection. Was there value in revisiting the past if it birthed a stronger future? The choice was momentous. Would he extend a hand before considering the consequences, or would fear dictate his response? He desperately needed to believe in the possibility of redemption, not just for Marcus, but for himself, too. Perhaps this could be a pivotal moment, a bridge leading not only to the other side of fear, but to a clearer understanding of who he had become. "How do we do that?" Oliver finally asked, emotion thick in his voice. It was a question laden with apprehension, but also perhaps for the first time a flicker of hope. "Together," Marcus replied, his earnestness wrapped in sincerity. Oliver nodded, feeling the currents of uncertainty swirl around him. He had chosen to confront his past, yet he still stood on tenuous ground. Trust would not be easily given. It would be earned over time. What lay ahead was a journey laden with the weight of their history, temptation lurking at each juncture. He sensed the trust he had built with the bikers transforming, converging with the unknown of this familial reunion. As the two brothers stood on the precipice of a fragile reconciliation, Oliver understood that the path of healing would demand more than mere dialogue. It would require action, accountability, and perhaps, above all, courage. The tension in the air thickened as Oliver grasped the gravity of this new journey. Would he be able to transcend the painful echoes of his history with Marcus at his side, or would old wounds clasp them into a cycle of regret? The uncharted road beckoned them both. What happens next? He asked, his voice a narrow thread woven with both trepidation and anticipation. Marcus took a step forward, his posture shifting from defensive to slightly more relaxed, revealing a hint of vulnerability that Oliver had scarcely seen in years. The brothers were worlds apart, yet they stood on similar ground, a patch of uncertainty strewn with the debris of their shared history. Oliver could feel a tension in the air shift, almost as though the universe was bracing itself for what lay ahead. "What comes next is on us," Marcus said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I'm not asking for forgiveness right away. I just want to show you that I can be different. But I need your help to figure out how." The weight of accountability settled heavily on Oliver's shoulders. He has spoken about rebuilding, but what would that actually look like? How could he trust someone who had once shattered that trust into a million irreparable pieces? Yet something was stirring within him, a realization that his own development hinged not just on holding on to the past, but also on accepting a future that he had never imagined. As he considered Marcus's request, Oliver suddenly recalled the countless moments in his life when he had faced insurmountable odds. Clawing his way through a tumultuous upbringing, finding solace among the bikers had equipped him with resilience, yes, but also instilled a strong code of ethics. They had shown him loyalty and understanding, the very things he had yearned for since Marcus had left. "Let us lay a foundation first," Oliver suggested, a thread of determination weaving through his tone. "We need to be honest about what happened. We can't just pick up from where we left off and pretend everything is okay." He felt a sense of empowerment surge within him as he articulated the boundaries required for their potential reconciliation. For a fleeting moment, Marcus's face hardened, shadows creeping back to his features. But then Oliver noticed a shift. Recognition, a flicker of understanding passed between them. "I'll be honest. It won't be easy," Marcus admitted, wringing his hands. "I'm ready to confront everything I put you through." The gravity of these words was not lost on Oliver. His need for reciprocal honesty would challenge them both in their most raw state. "And what does that even look like? Revisiting the darkness?" Oliver asked, every word steeped in suspicion. "Will we just dig up the past to bandage it with regret?" "No." Marcus's reply was sharp, full of conviction. "We'll confront it to learn and to grow. If we're going to move forward, we have to be willing to walk through the flames and come out the other side. Together." Oliver's heartbeat quickened. There was an unsettling honesty in Marcus's acknowledgement that simultaneously scared and intrigued him. Flames had a way of burning away what was unneeded, revealing only what could potentially grow back stronger. At that moment, a stray thought grazed Oliver's mind. What kind of man would he be if he didn't hold space for Marcus's attempt at redemption? Wasn't this the very moment he envisioned when he chose vulnerability on this journey of self-discovery? With a sudden clarity, Oliver launched into a plan. "We'll start small. You can help out at the garage with the bikers. They'll test your commitment, and I'll oversee your progress. Earning trust requires effort, both from you and me." His determination wrapped itself around Marcus's words like a lifeline, bringing real possibilities to the surface. "Absolutely," Marcus replied with a fierce glint of hope igniting in his eyes. But even as they solidified these intentions, a deep-seated anxiety nagged Oliver. Could he truly navigate this path without recalling every wound that Marcus had inflicted upon him? What if the attempt ignited old resentments instead of healing them? "Before we begin," Oliver stated, "there's something else. We need to confront the people you hung around with back then. I can't just forget the chaos they brought into our lives. Can we face that together?" Marcus inhaled deeply, recognition dawning in his expression. "I understand. My past connections won't vanish overnight. I'm prepared to face it head-on. But I need you there to hold me accountable. Will you?" In that moment, Oliver felt the terrifying weight of responsibility intertwine with his burgeoning sense of agency. The stakes were higher than he could have ever anticipated. He was committing to a process that needed transparency and was trenches deep in shadows. Yet, as their eyes met, Oliver sensed a flicker of hope, something he and felt toward Marcus in years. "Okay, let us do this then. But understand, if you falter, you'll lose me again," he warned, his voice steady but resolute. Together, they stood at the start of an uncharted path, hearts brimming with both trepidation and courage. The road ahead would demand all they had, pushing them to redefine themselves in ways they could barely grasp. But for both brothers, the fight for their shared future had just begun. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked, urgency coloring his voice, as they prepared to step into the past and face the specters that loomed. Oliver felt the air around them crackle with the energy of possibility. Would their confrontation with the past lead to liberation, or would it ensnare them in a cycle of bitterness? The answer hovered like a shadow just out of reach, waiting to be unveiled. The morning sun filtered weakly through the clouds as Oliver and Marcus approached the garage. An eclectic mix of motorcycles and tools lay scattered about the workspace, remnants of sweat and passion imbued in the very air surrounding them. Oliver's chest tightened with a cocktail of anticipation and fear. The challenge would not only be what awaited them from the past, but also the judgment from the bikers, whose loyalty he had always held sacred. They were more than just a community. They were his chosen family. "Just remember, honesty is key," he reminded Marcus as they pushed open the door. The clang echoed through the building, drawing the attention of a few mechanics who looked up with curiosity. Oliver's gaze darted to each face, silently gauging their potential reactions. Would they accept Marcus? Could he truly trust this man beside him? He had seen how quickly misgivings could spiral into chaos the kind Marcus had once thrived in. He shared a glance with Marcus, gauging his resolve, then took a breath and stepped inside, determined to steer them both into uncharted waters. "Hey, everyone. This is my brother, Marcus," Oliver announced, his voice echoing against the steel walls. "He is going to be working with us for a while." The room sank into tense silence, all eyes fixated on Marcus. "Nice to meet you, man," a burly mechanic finally said, breaking the ice with a firm nod. "Just remember, we don't take kindly to slackers or liars. You'll have to earn your place here." Marcus swallowed hard, running a hand through his hair. "I get it. I'm here to prove I'm different." The skepticism in the air dissipated slightly, but Oliver could feel their eyes still lingering on Marcus with unvoiced questions. He knew the journey ahead wouldn't just depend on their brotherly confrontation. It would necessitate trust and acceptance from those he held dear. As the day unfolded, the bikers set Marcus to work repairing a bike that had long since seen better days. Oliver watched him struggle at first, the tremors of doubt flickering across his face. But then a shift. Slowly, Marcus began to fall into a rhythm, each turn of the wrench asserting his presence. For every misstep, there was a lesson, and each lesson was morphed into newfound understanding. With a growing pride, Oliver noticed the way Marcus interacted with the rest of the crew. He listened, asked questions, and even laughed a sound Oliver hadn't heard in years. It was liberating yet terrifying, the delicate tightrope they were balancing on. "Hey," Oliver said during a break, motioning Marcus to follow him to a quieter part of the garage. "You're doing well, but I need you to keep your head in the game. Don't let your past pull you back in." Marcus's eyes flickered with a deep-seated worry. "What if they can't accept me? What if I slip? Then we'll face it together." "That's the whole point of this," Oliver replied firmly, but the doubt still nagged at his own mind. Could Marcus truly change, or was this just a facade waiting to crack under scrutiny? As the sun dipped low, the atmosphere in the garage grew festive, laughter intermingling with revving engines. For the first time, Oliver found himself caught in the warmth of the moment, a stark contrast to the coldness of their shared past. Yet, buried beneath that warmth was a whisper of apprehension, clinging like frost right before spring. "What's next, then?" Marcus asked as they prepped to leave. His voice carried an earnestness that made Oliver pause. "First, we talked to Tom, the guy who used to run with your old crowd," Oliver announced, pushing down his anxiety. "He has one piece in your past that needs to be addressed. We can't move forward without confronting those ghosts." Marcus nodded, the gravity of the task settling heavily upon them. It was a choice that didn't just feel consequential. It was a necessity that could either fortify their bond or threaten to sever it altogether. "Let us do it," Marcus said, his voice catching slightly but resolute. Oliver felt the weight of that resolve, a spark igniting within him, tempered by their shared discomfort. They stood on the verge of an undeniable conflict buried within the remnants of time, each reply to the past deeply intertwined with the uncertain future they dared to sculpt. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, but tonight, there lingered a moment filled with hope. As they walked side by side into the cool night, Oliver couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental lay ahead. Would tomorrow's unveiling of truths bring them closer, or would it unlock the gates of resentment they both feared? The darkness loomed, whispering secrets that beckoned to be revealed. Oliver stood at the threshold of the library, a place ripe with possibilities, swathed in warmth and the rough texture of old stories urging to be shared. The gathering he had envisioned was upon him, and as he took a deep breath, it surged with boundless exhilaration mixed with an echo of apprehension. No longer a timid boy clinging to shadows, he was ready to unfold the narrative of his journey, to share the space his resilience had built. As the crowd began to fill the community room, the familiar faces of peers now held a different guise. Instead of disdain, he sensed sparks of curiosity, the raw innocence of human connection igniting among them. He stepped forward, heart pounding, determined to embrace this moment. This was more than just a gathering. It was a turning point not only for him, but for all assembled. Echoing the same theme of vulnerability and bravery, the bikers were the first to arrive. Their grand entrance broke through the quiet with a rush of energy. As they took their seats, Oliver felt a welling pride. These were the individuals who had seen his pain, had stitched together strands of kindness that ultimately lifted him from despair. Gratitude mingled with purpose as he saw them prepared to share their stories, willing to be voices of transformation. Oliver took the stage, anticipation rushing through him like a tidal wave. "Thank you all for coming," he started, his voice steady with newfound confidence. "This is a safe space to share stories that connect us, heal us, and remind us of our shared humanity. I want to introduce to you a few friends who embody strength in adversity." He motioned for the bikers to join him, a chorus of varied voices joining together, forming a tapestry of experiences each biker shared. A raw honesty spilled into the room, each narrative weaving deeper bonds among the attendees. Oliver felt the shift in the atmosphere. Reconciliation was blossoming among his peers, reflections of understanding carved on their faces. They listened intently, and he marveled at the power of shared vulnerability. Electric connections forming through each story, spoken a symphony of transformation. Finally, it was Oliver's turn. He took a breath, centering himself within the decorum of the library while also acknowledging the weight of his truth. "I used to feel small," he started, noting the rapt attention of the crowd. "But every story I heard reminded me of strength. I faced my peers who mocked me, felt like I wasn't worthy. But looking around now, I see resilience surrounding me. It's in all of us." The bikers showed me that kindness grows where stories are shared, no matter the scars. His voice grew firmer as he shared his journey. The struggle against isolation transformed into empathy. He concluded. A ripple of applause reverberated through the room, a sincere acknowledgement of transformation. A rush of validation washed over him, solidifying an unwavering confidence that had once felt like a distant dream. He absorbed the claps, recognizing them not simply as sound, but as a culmination of courage, both his and those around him. Marcus, standing at the periphery of the audience, approached amidst the enthusiasm. Their eyes met, a silent agreement flaring between them, the conviction to confront their history further unfolding at the gathering. "I want to add something," he called out, voice rich with newfound authority. "I've returned not just to reconnect, but to face my past and be accountable. I need to learn from Oliver, from this gathering, and more importantly, from all of you." The admission fell like a stone into the pond of human connection, rippling across skeptical faces that softened into openness. As Oliver watched the collective embrace of warmth overwrite lingering judgment, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment even amidst the uncertainty. Each shared story was a pursuit of self-forgiveness, recognition, and ultimately, connection. Stepping off the makeshift podium, Oliver turned and faced the diverse faces around him, a surge of recognition swelling within. This was not the cowardly boy who feared loneliness. He had evolved into someone capable of leading and uniting people through the power of vulnerability, a beacon of strength against adversity. In that moment encapsulated among shared stories and supportive laughter, he realized he had accomplished what he had once deemed impossible. He felt gratitude for the bikers, for Marcus, and for each person present. They had collectively nurtured a safe space where kindness could blossom and where stories woven from shared experiences could ignite change. The gathering concluded with a fervent energy. Oliver had not only shared his journey, but had also paved the way for deeper connections. Tension ebbed into camaraderie, bridging the chasm once separating him from his peers. He felt lifted, his spirit no longer weighed down by shame, but buoyed by acceptance. He stepped quietly outside. Oliver knew that this day marked a significant chapter, one defined by redemption and individual triumph, a testament to his shift from fear to strength. He had embraced his truth, encouraged others to find their own, and for the first time, he felt truly recognized, not merely as Oliver, the kid with shadows, but as Oliver, the catalyst. It was a moment worth celebrating, as the dawn of possibility shimmered brightly ahead. With unwavering purpose, he was ready to embrace what lay beyond the future, brimming with hope. Don't wait even one more second. This is the moment to show your support for Oliver's journey. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach even more hearts. Comment below your reactions and theories about this ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us empower each other to embrace our stories.